when we box squat, we want to pick a height that we can actually control without plopping down. So you don't want to do that, right? You want to control down to the box and fast though, right? So you can pick a height starting where you actually can control, right? So let's say you can go a little bit lower than that. So now you drop down, right, to this box. And maybe this box height, you can still control. So you're like, okay, let me maybe try a little bit lower. That's where the little foam mats from like the yoga studios come in handy, because I can take the mat away, and then I can go down to the box, and I can stand up, right? You can keep going lower, you can keep going higher. And it can just say, depending on what you're doing on that day, what you're trying to work on, you know, maybe it's in season if you're an athlete, or you're just coming off of a knee injury, maybe you start a little higher. And then over time, maybe you're working farther down until you can get below parallel, you know, if need be, maybe even close to like ass to grass. All those heights will accomplish different things. And then you can also change your stance from close to wide. And the reason why we want to use a box, right, instead of like a bench, is because it's a little bit easier to keep your feet, get them out of the way, because like you see this box, I always want the point part of the box to be between my legs. I don't want it like this, especially with a wide box, because then I'm like kind of trying to, there's one more thing I have to worry about, where I have to try to get my feet out of the way. And I don't want that. So as I sit down, if I want to go close, this box is now in the way. But if I have it between my legs, now, whether I stand this close or this close, I'm kind of already in the right position, right? And also when we sit down to the box, we always want to make sure, let's say that especially if we're trying to really load our glutes and hamstrings, we want to think butt back first. As we break, we sit down and notice there's only a slight rock back. A lot of times when people are box squatting, they go like this. We don't want to do that, because then you're going to get loose, and what's going to happen is tend to be, when you try to come off the box, you're going to rock back forward before you stand back up. We want to do butt back and then stand straight up, okay? And then, so a lot of people, sometimes maybe they don't have a box that's one of these hard boxes that's going to get to the height. Another thing that I've shown people, right? Usually the worst gyms, they'll usually have like these little old school, the little stackables. Once again, I'll still go here, right? I got the big medicine ball, right, to get to my height that I want. And now I still got a box. Now, with this one, you gotta get even a little bit lighter on it, right? You wanna be real careful. You don't wanna just collapse, because there's not as much surface area, okay? So you gotta be careful with that. But it at least gives you an option. And if need be, I don't have it here available, you can use a bench, right? And then just like with the boxes, if it's a little too low, you can always add those foam pads on top. All right. Now, because I'm being lazy, I'm gonna start with the high box when we actually talk about the actual squat. Now, I am wearing my little slippies here. Usually I will be wearing like my Converse or my Reebok shoes, because they have a wide toe box, and that allows us to create more force in our feet. And when we start with the feet, everything else will probably go right? So you don't want the shoes that the toes are lifted in the front or the heels too high. Now you can have the Olympic lifting shoes, but the benefit of the Olympic lifting shoe is just like those Converse, their toe box is still decently wide, and it's also a balanced, locked in heel. High heeled shoes, typically like a basketball shoe or a running shoe, there's gonna be a lot of instability. Those, you gotta think, those shoes are literally made for Olympic lifting, where you're jumping with a bar. So those are a little bit different. For newbies, I would say you definitely don't need an Olympic lifting shoe. Now, if you're Olympic lifting, yes. And if you are a newbie, I'd say you probably shouldn't be Olympic lifting to start out. But I usually recommend a nice flat shoe. Now, these actually aren't bad because the toe box is ginormous, right? But I just usually wouldn't wear these. But when we start with our squat, no matter what type of squat we're doing, we are always going to start by just checking the bar and making sure it's even on both sides. Okay, after we have that done, we want to put our hands where we want, and we want to make sure those are even. A lot of times what will happen is when you first start squatting, sometimes you'll feel more pressure on one side of your leg, and that's probably because you have the bar maybe uneven on your back, whether that's because you put your hands in different spots, or maybe you started with the bar, shifted one direction or the other. So once you have the bar where you want it, you have your hands where they are. Where for me, I'm grabbing like pinkies on ring, because that's not too close where it's feeling painful in my shoulder or my elbow, and it's not too wide where I can't still engage my lats, okay? So what I'm gonna do is when I go underneath the bar, I don't squat too high or too low, I kind of go in between. I kind of feel, what I want to think is wedging myself into that bar, right? I want to make sure it's even. And what I want to do is I want to be pushing my knees apart. That's going to help me stay stable. My back is flat or slightly arched. And then what I'm going to think of doing is my rib cage is down, my elbows are squeezed into the middle. I'm feeling low, if we have a belt, feeling low into that abdomen and around, locking that in. Standing straight up, then we take the step back. What we don't want to do is try to do this where we stand up and walk back. I'm going to be feeling like I'm falling back in that situation. We don't want to do that. So once we have our breath locked in, we have our knees out, we're going to stand up. Hopefully the box is in a good position. We just take our 2 steps back, and if need be, maybe 1 or 2 more. That's as many steps as you should take. If you're taking more than that, the box is too far back. If you can't take a nice, good, decent sized step back, the box is probably too close. And if it's too close, you'll hit these J hooks on the way back up. You don't want to do it, right? So once I have I've unwrapped the bar and I've walked back and I'm stable, because we walked out, we've naturally lost a little bit of tension, a little bit of that brace. So we take a quick little breath through the mouth, block it back in, back, sit, explode up. Now, unless if I wrote a tempo, that's a slow control concentric, that may end with a pause maybe, and then maybe slow, it may be a slow eccentric, right? We always want to think there's needles or fire on that box. We don't want to just be relaxing on the box. We want to keep all the tension on there, especially on our hamstrings. We don't just want to be relaxing, and then we want to be powerful coming out. When we're done, we take our 2 steps forward, rack high, then low, okay? You don't want to ever rack low, because what's going to happen, sometimes you can miss that J hook, okay? And when you're squatting, let's say the elbows hurt when you're doing that squat. I'll do another video later on where we use the safety squat bar and we use the handles, because that's a good way to take away that pain that we can get from using the straight bar. And unless if you're a power lifter, you don't ever have to use a straight bar. Like if you have upper body issues, you know, I always say there's never an excuse. There's a way to work around it. So if you're a person that has shoulder issues, elbow issues, or something like that, you can either belt squat, you can use the safety squat bar. From Elite FTS, you can use the transformer bar. Whatever you gotta do so you can still squat. Because at the end of the day, when you get off the toilet, when you get off the bed, you're still squatting. So if you don't train that, you're gonna be unfamiliar with that. Your body's not gonna be used to that. And let's say you're playing with your kid, you get low, you stand up high, you ever have to jump, God forbid, that's where you get hurt, because you never expose yourself in a safe, controlled manner to that type of movement, right? Same thing with deadlifts. People are afraid of deadlifts, but if you never expose yourself to deadlift, we pick stuff off the ground all the time. So you want to nail that. So if you have any other questions about squatting, specifically with the box squat, send me a DM, and I hope this helps. Peace.